If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, June the 3rd. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's back at the producer's chair. You'll be speaking with David this morning when you give us a shout to get in the queue and on the air. The topic entirely up to you. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So socked in fog here in the St. John's metro region this morning. And if you're looking for what the forecast is going to be for the rest of the week, just look out the window, because what you see is what you get. And I know this is not a new phenomenon, and I'm sure not the only one to experience it. But yesterday, during some of the heaviest rain, I just ducked outside to throw a bag of garbage out into the bin, and the driveway was absolutely covered with worms. I'm talking like a few dozen worms had made their way to take up sanctuary on the driveway. What a sight. And then, of course, stayed up late last night, watching the Oilers take on the Stars to see who was going to make it their way to the finals, and it will be the Edmonton Oilers, which is absolutely remarkable. They're outshot 35-10, 1-2-1. So for even casual hockey fans, people know who Connor McDavid is, Leon Draisaitl, maybe Zach Hyman. And, of course, McDavid with a goal and assist last night. They scored both goals in the first period. And Stuart Skinner, the goaltender, absolutely stood on his head. Now, if they play like that against Florida, they're going to get steamrolled. But one player that doesn't get a whole lot of attention yet, but will into the future, is Oilers defenseman Evan Bouchard. He had 2 points last night, assisted on both of the goals in the first period, so that moves him into fifth all-time for the most productive points perspective in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Get a load of this. He's only behind Paul Coffey. Well, let's see now. First, Bouchard last night got his 27th point. Coffey has 37. That's the most ever for a defenseman in the playoffs. Brian Leach, Al McInnes, Cale Makar. And behind Bouchard, players like Ray Bourque, Denny Potvin. So Bouchard having quite a playoffs thus far. And we were giving you the updates of the French Open, of course the tennis tournament over in Paris at Roland Garros. We had 4 Canadians active on the singles side entering the weekend and come out the other side of the weekend with 0. So for the lower seeded players and the unseeded players, the real goal is to get to the second week. And we were on the verge and of course came up unfortunately shy. And good luck to Blair Bursey, Gander's very own professional golf player. He's participating today in the 36-hole U.S. Open qualifier. 72 players are playing, only 4 spots available. So let's see if Bursey can string it together and qualify for the next stage to play in one of the golf's majors. All right, say good morning and congratulations to a couple of local students been awarded TD scholarships to the tune of $70,000. Why? They're working on food sustainability issues. So Casey Budgell is from Valmont Academy on Kings Point, been very active in the community, working with the development of the community garden, getting local produce into the schools and in the town council, and also been working with the Food Producers Forum and is the current project manager of the Earth Sheltered Greenhouse. Secondly, Leah Casey, Holy Spirit High and CBS, been involved in the community garden in that community, bringing local young people in to maintain the local gardens, also organizing fundraisers and support for youth. She led the Friday for future global climate change movement. Okay, so there you go. Congratulations to those two. And what I think is probably a very positive move, we talk about the youth of the day, understanding our history and some of the big implications on the province's history, notably the First World War. I mean, the future of the province absolutely did change with the number of young men that didn't make their way home. And even some that did, of course, with the aftershock of the war and the PTSD, which was not a diagnosed issue of the day, pretty much just call it shell shock. So annually, there's been the opportunity for some 30 students to make their way to Belgium and France to follow the trail of the caribou and participate in the July 1st ceremonies at Beaumont Hamel, now expanded from 30 to 100. Probably a really good idea. So that's going to be an awesome opportunity for 100 young Newfoundlanders and Labradorians annually to make their way to that poignant trail, something that I think I'd like to do one of these years. All right. Then there's a conversation we tried to float last week with the possibility to look at how the government legislates the access to tobacco products. This is pretty good stuff. Number one, they're talking about banning vending machines that can offer you cigarettes. Of course, the vending machine can't ask you for an ID. To be honest with you, I didn't even know there were still vending machines out there selling cigarettes. I haven't seen one in quite a long time. And then even talking about raising the legal age of purchase from 19 to 21. And then with the concept, like introduced in Australia and in the UK and on Prince Edward Island, picking a specific date. January the 1st, 2009. If you're born after, you are not able to buy cigarettes ever. Now, they're looking for public consultation and input, and you can do it on this program if you're so inclined this morning. It all sounds like a good idea, right? Of course, Kevin Cody at Actis talked about including vaping on that front. But the issue will be, and we've had these conversations in the past, let's just say they proceed with it as they've currently floated it. So the whole concept of prohibition has never worked. Contraband tobacco will flood the streets. Same thing with vaping products. We do know that there's a problem with vaping in this province and right across the country. Here's some of the stats. 27% of youth in this province are using or have tried vaping products, including 58% of youth in the senior high grades. So that approach is what Mr. Cody calls a crisis. We have gone a long way with the warnings on packages, and apparently there's going to be warnings on individual cigarettes coming very soon, and hiding behind the wall versus the big colorful display that used to be featured in the corner store. But with the vaping, the problem, we're told, is if the youth are unable to get it in their corner store, they'll simply buy it online. And sometimes what you can buy online is absolutely more dangerous than what you can buy in the store. So Mr. Cody says it's worth some conversation and have a nice close look at it. Hopefully Kevin Cody is able to join us on the program this morning to talk about his rationale behind some of his thoughts. Okay. So interesting weekend unfolded in the province's West Coast and Corner Brook in particular, or specifically. So first promised back in 2007, the doors of the new Western Memorial Regional Hospital are open. Patient transfers took place over the weekend. And yes, we can talk about the troubling and complicated issue regarding long-term care and residents that are being moved very far afield, further from their loved ones. A couple of things that I did not know were part of this new hospital. So, of course, it took an awful long time from the pledge to make its way to actual operations. But they're all private rooms. I did not know that was going to be the case. So no more of those concerns that people have voiced over the years with the women sharing the four-bed wards with men and the privacy concerns therein, and of course some of the self-conscious nature that will obviously be part of that issue. So all private rooms. Now the old hospital, which they're referring to as the Legacy Hospital, is not closed in full. Still some administrative staff, whether it be finance, human resources, and otherwise. The laundry will be there. There will be some healthcare options available inside the old hospital in Corner Brook proper, but all rooms are going to be private. I thought that was interesting. All right, we reached out to Denise Hanrahan, the province's Auditor General, to see if she could come on to talk about the report released last Thursday about some of her concerns with the lack of action on recommendations have been made since all the way back, say, to 2016. So when people talk about the weight that the Auditor General can bring to bear, or the Child and Youth Advocate, or the Seniors Advocate, the concern has long been, okay, let's do the review, and I think the Auditor General's office, of course, is critically important. But the problem does persist that even when reports are tabled, Ms. Hanrahan comes on this show or goes throughout the media, and it doesn't really have any weight. There's no real firm legal obligation on behalf of government to act on it. Now, sometimes they've done a decent job on acting on recommendations and have tried to plug some of the gaping holes in the system. But on this front, and especially in healthcare, Ms. Hanrahan is quite troubled, and so should we all be. Just some base numbers. So there's 69 outstanding recommendations on the table. 40% of the AG recommendations from 2016 to 2020. 83% were from 2017 or earlier. Now, she does acknowledge, and these are pretty wide-ranging insofar as what the concerns are, recommendations relate to evaluation, oversight, governance, compliance with policy, business continuity, conflict of interest, internal controls, fraud management, all pretty big deal. Her number one concern lies with healthcare. So here we go. Low overall implementation rates include NL Health Services at 36%, the Department of Justice and Public Safety at 40%, the Department of Health Community Services at 45%, and the Executive Council at 50%. Now, all the while acknowledging some big changes have taken place inside healthcare and education. For instance, the Department of Education now has it folded in the Newfoundland and Labrador English-speaking school district. Now, we're told there's going to be some savings achieved there that can be reinvested into the classroom. Not really sure still what that means. And, of course, all 4 regional health authorities have amalgamated into one. But that doesn't speak to some of the pre-pandemic years and all the way back to 2016. So, yes, Denise Hanrahan and her predecessors have done incredibly important work, but how and when is the government going to act on what has been independently reviewed of their operations, whether it be compliance with policy, continuity, oversight, governance, management, fraud management? So, too bad Ms. Hanrahan's not available today. She's away this week, but will be on next week to talk about that very issue, if you're so inclined. And, of course, reminder, folks who might need ambulatory services, emergency services, don't call the old 10-digit number that you would have called in the past. The whole entire province is operating, or my understanding is the entire province is operating on 911. Sticking with health for a second, someone wanted me to put this back out there, and fair enough. And it's the whole sugar tax business. So it's been applied kind of bizarre fashion right from the get-go. It was the 11th hour, and retailers didn't really know exactly how to handle this. So it's 20 cents per litre, right, for these pre-sweetened drink beverages and dispensed beverages. And then there's a floating target when it comes to the concentrated drink mixtures. So the province is unwilling or unable to say whether or not it's working, but we do know that in 2023, when we got the update in the fall, that they brought in or collected some $11 million. That was more than they expected. It was 22% more than anticipated. The problem is they haven't released the sales data, so we don't really know whether or not it's changed people's shopping habits, which was the intention. And if the overall goal was things like improved health outcomes because of the reduction in your sugar intake, fair enough, but based on a higher than anticipated windfall, it kind of feels and sounds and looks like it's not working. So someone wanted me to put that back out there, and we can do it. Whether you think that's pragmatic healthcare policy or, as people refer to it, as a cash grab, we can take it on. On that front, this might be of interest to you. So many of these products will come in a bottle or a tin. So Aaron, one of our faithful listeners and a Twitter follower, he said he took 2 bags of bottles and cans to the Green Depot on Friday. Got less than $4. He says, I get why people don't bother recycling anymore. Maybe time to increase the rates. Have they gone up in the last 40 years? Good question. So right now, for a tin, 5 cents. So when we talk about reduce, reuse, and recycle, unless you have curbside pickup for your recyclables, it does become a bit of a task. And, whether or not people think it as onerous or too much to do, but yeah, I mean, the money at the other end is really not that significant. Like he pointed out, in 1985, that was a windfall. That felt like a big amount of money. Now, not so much. Is it time to increase the deposit on these recyclables? It's a good question. I wonder what you think of it. You can bring it forward here. This morning. Okay. See, lots of back and forth on social media about a concept that I think is a overall good idea in an effort to try to slow people down, is the speed cameras. So what I've seen gone back and forth is the law-abiding citizen versus the non-law-abiding citizen. And what the reference to there is that if you have a license plate with the numbers peeled off so they're illegible, and or you have one of those little screens or visors or opaque piece of plexiglass over it, number one, they are already in contravention of the Highway Traffic Act. And they cannot be read by speed camera. And in the pilot project last year, 86% of the plates on vehicles cited for speeding were fine, but the rest, the 14%, could not be identified. That was according to Minister Sarah Studley on this program. So here we go. People are right. I mean, if you're willing to just coast along with your unreadable license plate or just to leave your little shelter, your screen over it or your piece of plexiglass over the plate, you're going to be able to dodge through these zones and not get nicked. So Is it going to be as big a problem as it sounds? Like, for starters, 14% sounds a bit low. I thought it would have been higher. But do we actually need to consume time by RNC or RCMP officers to start pulling over every unreadable license plate? You know, offer a warning. If you're caught again, then you get a real ticket. Same thing with the piece of plexiglass. Because you're right, if it's going to be fairly applied, I mean, it's a nice way to dodge a speeding ticket by simply to keep your old unreadable plate. And yes, you do have to make an appointment or walk into a government services building or motor vehicle and exchange your plate free of charge. But how many people are going to do that now that they know they've got an unticketable, so far as speed cameras go, license plate? So if something's got to give there, and how many people are going to willfully, on their own accord, take the time to make their way into their closest motor vehicle to exchange it? Or are we going to have to see law enforcement force the change? Anyway, let's talk about it, if you're so inclined. And now sticking with the roadways, or I guess the side roads, for ATVs. So it was a couple of years ago where the government passed legislation obliging people to wear a helmet and, confoundingly for folks, especially in side-by-sides, wearing a seatbelt. Okay, so they're talking about parents leading by example and you have to take responsibility for your children and their ATV usage. And there is a new online course that is soon going to be made mandatory. It's multiple choice or multiple guess. There's 15 there. You only got to get 12 right. 80% you pass. There is some requirement for people already who have had their license or their registration suspended that they have to take the course, but there's no mandatory hands-on training. You know, for first-time ATV users, they're fun. They really can be a lot of fun, but they're powerful and they're heavy, and one false move could lead to serious ramifications, injury, and yes, people have died in ATV accidents. So do we need to mandate actual hands-on training like we do for most every other vehicle, motor vehicle? You got to do it for your motorcycle. You got to do it for your car. You got to do it for your RV. But we don't make it mandatory in the world of ATV. Someone wanted me to put that on the radar. And, of course, there it is. Consider it radar. All right, let's go to the water. So beginning the middle of this month, the return to the commercial redfish fishery. So it's been closed since 1995, and there are some still persistent stock concerns. We were told that the quota, the floor anyway, would be about 25,000 metric tons. Apparently it's going to be 60,000 tons for 24-25. Still doesn't necessarily jibe with some of the spawning biomass numbers. So it peaked at an estimated 4.3 million tons in 2019, declined to 2.5 million tons in the most recent stock assessment, but here we go. The number one concern here, well, I guess there'd be two. 60% of the allocation is going to the offshore. Redfish has been primarily an inshore fishery, so huge questions to be asked there. And then, you know, some of it is for human consumption, some of it's used for bait, but at 30 cents a pound, with the very paltry quota afforded to the inshore, this is not going to work like it was intended. People in the inshore fishery who had gone after redfish, or maybe wanting to go after the redfish now, given some of the concerns with the numbers of shrimp or the decline in the shrimp stock, boy, at 30 cents and that limited quota for the inshore, not really sure it's going to work out the way the inshore harvesters had hoped, especially those trying to get out of the shrimp business and get in full on to the redfish business. All right, a couple of very quick ones. Here we go, right around the corner, tourism, or the peak of tourism season, and the brand new Marine Atlantic vessel, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it, Alasunui, something like that. I apologize for butchering that one. So, it's not working. 2 weeks before it was supposed to start on the Argentia run, we have figured out there's some kind of problem with the vessel's lubrication system. I've heard the rumbles and rumors for folks who are travelers constantly on Marine Atlantic about some bigger problems than simply what the lubrication system might be. So this is a problem. You know, who owns it, where it was built, all those things we can talk about, but, you know, if it's not one thing, it's another. Brand new vessel, we talked about the number of cabins and more pet-friendly rooms and all the rest of it, and now likely not to hit its intended start date of the 14th of June, so that's too bad. All right, this is the very last one, promise. So we talk about the amount of money is going out the door, and whether it be for pay regarding the public service. Now I see a release by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation regarding the amount of bonus money that has been paid out in federal departments in the last fiscal year. $406,422 in bonuses paid last year. Since 2015, bureaucrats working for the federal government have had bonuses to the tune of $1.5 billion. At the same time, Less than 50% of the performance targets are consistently met within the same year, yet the money goes out the door, and that's according to the Parliamentary Budget Office. About 90% of federal government executives take home a bonus each year, also reports published by the PBO and the CTF. Let's break it down a little bit. For bureaucrats working in federal departments and agencies, took home $210,000 plus in taxpayer-funded bonuses in 23-24. Bureaucrats working in the federal crown corporations took almost $200,000 in bonuses. It doesn't seem to me that performance targets are being met, and I don't think there's much of an argument there. I do indeed trust the work done by the PBO, and that office is pretty consistent with these shortcomings in the federal departments, both in the federal departments themselves and the Crown Corps. But yet, that didn't stop the government from paying out over $406,000 in bonuses last year around Twitter. Or VOCM Openline, follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show to kick off the week. Chris Bruce is in the queue to talk about what we heard from Minister Seamus O'Regan on this program last Friday regarding our electrical grid. Oh, good. And Kevin Cody is the Executive Director with ACT NL, and he's going to be there to talk about some of the proposals being floated by the province. And then we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's begin this morning on line number 8 and say good morning to the Executive Director at the Newfoundland and Labrador Alliance for the Control of Tobacco. That's Kevin Cody. And good morning, Kevin. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I heard your comments earlier and certainly ready to chat about it.
You know, from the 100,000 feet above sea level, this sounds like a pragmatic move forward, but when you say it's worthy of more dialogue, discussion, or a deep dive, in exactly what aspects do we need to have a careful look?
Well, I think this gives us an opportunity to take a careful look. You know, what is it we need to do to prevent our young people from ever starting to smoke? And what can we do to help those who are currently smoking find a way to quit? So I think, the age idea has some merit and we should look at it. But for me, we cannot let go of the fact that people have to be made aware of what smoking can do and does do to you health-wise. We have to also try to give more help and support to the people who are trying to quit. I mean, it's a huge task, difficult task. It's not as easy as saying, make a plan or go out and get the patch or whatever the case might be. Support is essential, and we need to have that full discussion, I believe, as opposed to just assuming an age change can solve everything. I don't see that happening, but, the discussion needs to be held.
Yeah, fair enough. When it comes to awareness and education and support, like this has been a generational shift. We used to play golf tournaments that were called the Demorier, and now all of a sudden that goes away, and you can't advertise on television for these products, and they're hid behind walls in the store, and the warnings are on the packages, and soon warnings are going to be on the individual cigarettes. So a lot has changed there, and consequently the smoking rates have come down. So if we're going to expand education and those types of things, what does that include? Because it seems like we've gone a long way. Not to suggest we've gone all the way, but we've certainly gone a long way.
Yeah, and the good point you make there that the smoking rates are down. We are more than pleased right now, actually, with the youth smoking rate in our province. I mean, we're down in the single digits, and around 3% the last update we had. So, and I hear the same is happening across the country. Of course, the problem. The thing that's offsetting that, and it's a huge problem, is the vaping issue. And you referenced that earlier, too, that our youth are gone to the vaping. And while some will argue that's better than smoking, well, the reality is it's a nicotine delivery system. And that's where the industry is so smart, I guess, or so cute on all of these things. They found a new way to deliver nicotine, and people are getting addicted. Our young people are getting addicted and not even realizing it. So when I say continuing the battle of getting the word out, that's the word that has to be moving out rapidly and constantly. Vaping is not the answer for our youth, and but yet they're attracted to it because the industry has made it so attractive. So I think the messaging is the key. We can't let it go, and make some other adjustments. Absolutely, making it a little more difficult for young people to find the cigarettes, to get the cigarettes. Again, easy to say that, not necessarily easy to achieve it. But we have to continue to have the discussion, and as an advocacy group, as a group that's trying to work on this issue, we're more than ready to chat with government about it and see what ideas we can come up with.
Yeah, some of the stats used about the percentage of youth using these vaping products is obviously concerning. And I said this off the top, and I'll get your reaction too. We talk about the war on drugs, which has, cost trillions of dollars, and are we any further ahead? Absolutely not. We're probably 10 steps backwards. Same thing with prohibition on alcohol. Did it work? No, it just brought more organized crime, no less drinking into play. And now with banning cigarettes and or, upping the purchase age, those types of things, the world of online contraband is right there in front of us. So even with the vaping, I understand your concerns and I share them. But if you can't get it in the store, they're just going to click the mouse on their computer, and they're going to have it brought in from some online distributor, and it might be even more dangerous than we see in the store. So how do we square that circle, or do you agree that that's a problem?
Oh, that's definitely a problem. There's no denying the fact that youth can access vapes, and the age restriction is not stopping them at all because it's so simple to get around that. So there's no doubt about that. And these are the things. This is what I'm saying. We need to be talking about. Is there something that can be done? Is there a step that government can take? We just have to continue to discuss, to work on it, and to come up with something. But you're right, contraband is a major issue. So is there more that can be done to curb the contraband? I know that falls in the hands of the federal government, maybe more than ours. But talking and working with federal government is the key also. So, yeah, no easy solutions, Paddy, but discussion and careful discussion, and not just jumping and saying, let's just do this. I think that's the key.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about government property, that includes school grounds, they'll ban smoking and vaping, even though I'm not even entirely sure how they enforce that. But maybe this has got to be a bigger part of the curriculum. Like the DARE program can be helpful for awareness of what drugs might mean to ruin your life and those types of things. Maybe it's time to act smoking, and not to be, trying to scare people straight, but just offer them the facts. And then last question before I let you go is, a few years ago, and I can't remember when, the government was floating the concept of providing smoking cessation tools, whether it be the gums or the patches or whatever, to low-income earners as opposed to everyone, because the oncology department doesn't care how much money you make if you got lung cancer. So those free cessation tools, was that a good idea?
Oh, I think so, but it didn't go far enough. No. I think the argument is that anyone who's addicted to smoking needs the cessation tools and needs the support. So can we go beyond low income? Because even your mid-income find it difficult to spend money on a cessation product. They'd like to, but it's difficult. So I think that's a part of the discussion. What can we do there, because cessation is so key. We're currently getting the word out on the vaping and the smoking through the schools, and working with teachers more than ever. Our Truth About Vaping campaign is out there. We're doing social media. So I think we continue to have to invest. We have to invest in that. We have to invest in cessation support for all, if it's doable. So that's the discussion we'd like to be having.
Yeah, because whoever's in the middle class, we're not entirely sure who that class is any longer, but they're pinched. They really are. I mean, whether you talk about interest rates, cost of living, inflation, whatever it is, anyone in the middle class, their purchasing power has declined dramatically in the last number of years. Kevin, I appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Paddy.
Take good care. Bye-bye. That's Kevin Cody. He's the Executive Director with the Newfoundland Labrador Alliance for the Control of Tobacco. The vape issue, if you drive by a junior high or high school during lunch hour or whatever type of break or after school, the cloud of vape is undeniable. And here's some of the numbers one more time for the prevalence of vaping in particular. 27% of youth in the province say they have used or are, they're using or have tried vaping products. 58% of youth in the senior high school grades got the vape on hand. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, Chris, you're next to talk about what Minister O'Regan had to say last week on this program. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to the top of the board. Line number one. Good morning, Chris. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty. How are you today?
Doing okay, thanks. How about you?
Oh, doing good, thanks. I got a bunch of boring stuff about Seamus's call, so I'm just going to start kind of clicking through it, and we'll see what comes up, eh?
Okay.
The top of it, he said that this is a private money investment. And, you raised a lot of really good questions, Patty, and I really appreciate it because these things do deserve extra attention. And so we don't actually know how much, say, World Energy GH2 has spent. And, Seamus kind of says, well, we need to follow the money, and that's how you'll find out where the good investments are. And so far, even without final investment decision, they say they've spent that $120 million or so, whatever. But how much of that was on flights? How much of that was on advertising? How much of that was on lobbying? How much of that was on taking our residents to court, which is still ongoing now? How much of that was deploying tactical synergy? I wouldn't describe any of those things as investing in Newfoundland, and we have definitely subsidized it. And so there's this strange narrative that, well, we're not going to repeat Muskrat Falls, because this is private money, and we should be proud and excited about that.
Well, I just think the mention of Muskrat in the same sentence is just purposefully misleading anyway, and people use it from both sides, right? They're going to say that, well, this is just like Muskrat, or the minister said we're going to avoid trying to replicate Muskrat. It's an entirely different kettle of fish. I'm the customer for Muskrat Falls. It was built and managed by the Crown Corporation. This is not. And, the funding at this moment in time, I think there's a fair debate to be had about, points taken that you say, investing in the province does not include marketing and taking people on and all that kind of the specifics that you mentioned. The only support we've seen so far regarding tax dollars out the door, and we're not even sure how much of this has been accessed at this moment in time, is the federal government granted them a $128 million loan in the form of a line of credit so they can withdraw as they see fit. No other public monies have flowed at this moment, but at some point, if this project gets built, there will be copious amounts of money, hundreds of millions of dollars available in the form of tax subsidies. So it's a public project, so to speak.
And I would actually suggest we have spent a bunch of money, in particular on one of a newly popular topic now, which is Crown lands. It's not that our government hasn't invested in modernizing Crown lands in the last few years. They did. They did a total overhaul on the site and the publications, but they did it to further the wind project, not to resolve the ongoing conflicts they have with their citizens. And we don't know how much of these kind of in-kind donations the province has made to clear the path for these guys. We don't really know how much they've spent also flying around and advertising on their behalf. Our hydrogen strategy, there are indignant air quotes that I'm making there, Patty, is really just an advertising piece for these companies. It's not a good technical document. And these are all very technical things. And so, like on Muskrat Falls, there's lots of reasons to be angry about that. But the core of the cost overruns came from trying to build a dome over the construction site and setting their timelines around that. And then they tried to do it twice. And this is not random people. These are the captains of industry of our province. This is Danny Williams. This is Kathy Bennett and Siobhan Cody on the board of Nalcor. These were the titans of industry who were supposed to be trusting, that aren't the nonsense bureaucrats or whatever. It's so bizarre. And so within those lack of technical details and technical expertise, Seamus he did a speed run of wrong statements. So he said we're going to have a 99% clean grid. That is a very unrealistic thing within at least a decade. So hydro occasionally does reach out to me, which is nice, and I appreciate that. Thanks, guys. And one of my tweets said there are people saying we have a 99% clean grid. And they were like, oh, no, we want to make sure that's not out there and that none of our people are saying that, because not only do we not have that, we won't be able to achieve that anytime soon. And that's our utility. That's the people who actually make the power. And so, we don't actually have our April monthly supply report, but March was about 13% of our power delivered came from hydrocarbons. Friday, the last bit of data we have was 11.29%. And we're supposed to be hitting 90, 92, 93, 95%, depending on the demand of the day. And so because the Labrador Island Link hasn't been working very well, we have not been hitting those numbers. And we won't. We need Holyrood if we want to have lights. It is not a problem run roughshod. It is an example of the province not investing in on-island generation. And you can go back through Hydro's reports for a few years where they're essentially begging, saying we need more on-island generation. It will take 10 years to build anything. We need this, we need this, we need this. And so, I'm a high-level hippie. I don't like the idea of using chemicals on my farm or my garden, and but I also really like having lights. So this mystique around the 99% clean grid is one, not accurate, and two, not helpful or reasonable.
And even just the cost, the newly updated price tag for the road to net zero by 50/50, and net zero doesn't mean zero, it means net zero. That price tag has become astronomical and maybe even impossible. Add to it the amount of work that has to be done on the grid, and that would include all the new electrical engineers we're going to need, all the work we're going to need by linemen and the others, and to build and maintain the grid. We are talking about a position that the country is nowhere near achieving. Not even close. Final thoughts to you before I take another call, Chris.
Well, so different places are actually pretty close to achieving it. The minister did take some time to point out Alberta, which is a really terrible example. They do have a bunch of new money going into wind and solar, but currently 23.9% of their grid is renewable. And that, will probably hang around there for the day. It gets less windy the sunnier it gets, but demand goes up. Alberta is certainly not the grid to look at if you want to have clean technology. And I do want to point out that there was an email between Seamus and Andrew Parsons from 2021 where they did actually both discuss the solutions that the province needs. Seamus asked Andrew to consider building an SMR, which is a small modular nuclear reactor, which would fill our gap for Holyrood quite nicely. And Andrew responds in the letter saying, we're actually, kind of considering that, but it's illegal right now, so we can't consider it too much. But we would like for you to help pay for a line to Nova Scotia. And the federal government has not done that. And that line would improve Muskrat Falls, which was, needs still more investment, and would also knock a bunch of coal off of Nova Scotia's grid. But neither of those good things have happened, and instead both parties have spent their time and energy over these last 3 years on a wind project, begging private investors to spend probably less than 50% of the ticket price, and for the public to own none of it. It is I just can't help but feel that people would come away less informed if they were to believe the things that Minister O'Regan said.
Well, ownership can max out at 60 because there's up to 40% and that's only capital cost recovery from the federal government. Is, the variance between 15% and 40% is currently what's on the table. Does anybody know how that's going to be applied? No. Why? Because they haven't defined green, which, I know that's not as fundamental as saying X, but you would think when these types of big numbers are floated, they'd be already well down the road for applying this definition, because it'll feel different in Nova Scotia for Everwind than it will for Everwind here, if either even happen. And of course,
we also have the 200 million double-sided auction, and that's 200 million euros that we have decided to apply to the production side. And meanwhile, Germany has announced today they are not going to hit their 2030 hydrogen goals because of a lack of demand side, which we are not developing. And last week they closed down the hydrogen department in their transport department because it was so addled with fraud. So I certainly hope we stop doing all of these very silly energy investments, because it has been a waste of many years and many, many millions of dollars, and we will not be well served if any of these investments come to pass.
Appreciate the time, Chris. Thank you.
You too, Patty. Thank you.
Bye-bye. And the minister also did mention, upon being asked about it, is that apparently the amendments to the Atlantic Accord to allow for the potential for offshore wind has passed third reading, so that's coming very, very quickly. Can that play a role in the hopeful sometime into the future decommissioning of Holyrood? I don't know. And we also know that they're looking around at a variety of options. And the forecasted demand side, Jennifer Williams said on this show that it's going to increase by 13% by 2030. So they're talking about a 150 megawatt generator at Holyrood possibly, and other opportunities. That SMR conversation never really went that far. Remember when it was floated about having a nuclear waste dump site in Labrador? And I think that was floated by Jean Chrétien, as a matter of fact. Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, Crystal wants to talk about the offer made to home care workers. Bevan wants to talk about convocation ceremonies at Memorial University. These grocery stores, doctors, whatever you want to talk about, don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 3. Bevan, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was my turn in the lineup. It's Bevan LeDrew calling. Patty, I, for the first time in forever, attended one of the convocations at Memorial University last Thursday. I was awed by there was 9 convocations held last week, and the one that I attended on Thursday afternoon, I had about 200 people receiving their degrees. It was an incredibly well-organized event, and like I say, I was really impressed by the number of graduates there. We opened the event singing of O Canada. Chancellor Neil Ludlow gave a really impressive and inspiring talk. Seemed appropriate to the occasion. He talked about being part of the delegation that went over to France to accompany the remains of the unknown soldier and bringing it back to here for placement at the War Memorial. He mentioned how emotional he found that incident, the experience, and he reminded us of the origin of Memorial University. It was established by Sir Richard Squires as a meaningful form of memorial to those who were lost during the First World War. I guess the thing that kind of smacked me in the face, though, was there was no mention of the ode. There's no singing of the ode. And then I recalled how the university, in its wisdom, had decided it was doing away with the ode. And I just find that such a contrast. Here's an institution, and we were reminded of it at the convocation. It was established as a memorial, and yet they didn't play the Ode.
Yeah, I mean, I think, number one, eliminating singing of the Ode to Newfoundland was unnecessary. You know, even if there was groups there that had issues with feeling left out, if we're talking about inclusion, to exclude something just sounds counterintuitive to me. So if there was the need or the want to include the Ode to Labrador, which is really quite lovely, then why not just do that and keep the Ode to Newfoundland? But one thing that I will ask you about, though, Bevan, is what is the link you're trying to make between Memorial University, Remembering the Lost, and the Ode to Newfoundland? Because, of course, if we're talking about as long ago as the First World War, beginning in 1914, the Ode was written in 1902, so it really had nothing to do with the military and or the lives lost in the war. So what's the connection you're making?
Well, I guess it's a personal connection.
Okay.
When I was a young fella, we used to start off, to the Queen, and we'd finish with the Ode. And that was always part of, sort of making me feel part of and proud of the province. And as you say, the Ode was in the early 1900s. That's when it was brought into being. But it was just a connection that I made, and I guess I was reminded again because at the time they announced they were dropping the Ode. I didn't go along with the arguments that were placed. You could alter the wording. There's, as you say, there's other things that could be done. But of all the institutions, one that stands for academic freedom, et cetera, and one that was established as a memorial, for them to drop the singing of the Ode, what gets me is to me it was an insult to somebody who lives in this province, and I can't speak for others who aren't from here or how it might upset or disturb them, but to me the university shot itself in the foot, and they still do, because I went to Memorial, I got a couple of degrees from there, and I was proud of that. Memorial has an alumni department that tries to stay contacted in connection with all these people, people of my age and background, hopefully. But part of what alumni associations do is try and get the alumni actively engaged in supporting the organization, and perhaps even leaving them endowments or making donations, that kind of thing. Well, I can tell you, I don't feel any inclination to mention the Memorial University Endowment Fund in any pathetic little will I might leave behind, or any other form. To me, they shot themselves in the foot, and I think it was a poorly thought out, a poorly executed decision.
And it was just a group of 7 that made this decision on behalf of all, and it kind of came out of nowhere. I honestly had never heard one single person complain about it. Not to say that someone didn't complain, whether it be to one of the provosts or to the president or what have you, but it just seemed to come out of left field, and I was like, wow, how did this come to pass? And, we should have included stuff, not excluded stuff. That's the way to handle that, in my opinion. And interesting to mention the Alumni Association. And I'm not going to speak ill of the folks who are trying to do whatever they're doing at MUD on that front, but it's very much unlike a lot of different universities across the country. Like, if I'm a graduate, let's just pluck a university, Western in London, Ontario, on the weekend, I'm wearing my Western hoodie. I'm making contributions too. I'm going to the football game. If I went to Harvard or Boston College or UCLA or whatever, I wear my swag on the weekend. It's part of who I am. People talk about it as if it's one of the most important times of their life. And for many university students, it is. Do we see that same sort of admiration and loyalty and commitment with Memorial University graduates? Not really. Now, I'm not trying to compare Harvard and UCLA to Memorial University, but it's the exact same thing if we're talking about pride of school and staying in contact with school.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, one of the things I was quite pleased to see is that our chancellor now, Neil Ludlow, is an engineer and a graduate of Memorial University, and he spoke about growing up in Fogo and sort of really formed a good connection. And to me, it was kind of reinforcing to see that the highest office at Memorial is occupied by a graduate of Memorial, and that kind of makes you feel a bit better about being able to say, well, I went to that university too. But I agree with you that we seem to have missed, the university, the people who are alumni, it doesn't seem to have resulted in that kind of lifeline connection. I have a friend who went to University of Texas, and like you say, swag on the weekend and proud of it. And if he sees somebody else who's from the university, there's a link, there's a connection. It hasn't grown, it hasn't developed here, and I'm not sure the reason, but I do know one thing, that the actions to drop the ode didn't do anything to strengthen or endear my feeling toward Memorial.
Approximately how old is your University of Texas friend?
Dennis is about 10 years younger than me. He'd be 70. So
there's no doubt in my mind that Dennis is willing to flick up a hook 'em horn sign at the drop of a hat.
Oh yeah, right? Exactly.
So the Texas Longhorns. I just happen to know that hook 'em horns business. I appreciate the time, Bevan. Thanks for the call.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, will I sneak another one on, Dave, before we get to the news break? Dave's on the phone, so I'm going to sneak one on here. I'm going to go to line number 6. Oral, you're on the air.
Hi, Paddy. It's been a long while since I spoke to you, buddy.
Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to make it short and sweet, and I won't mention nothing, but all I wanted to say is I was on my way up to the supermarket, okay?
Yep.
Yes, and I locked my bike up at the supermarket, so I had to get a taxi home, on low income. You don't have much money. So I'm heading to a friend here in the wheelchair, lady friend. So I comes back, and a bunch of security came out and thanked the Lord for my brother. He jumped out of the truck, and he said, "What are you doing to the guy? That's his bike." They were blaming me for robbing my own bike, So make a long story short, now I'm going to get ready to go for a little ride. So I didn't realize, because they got cameras up there, right? And I didn't realize it, that the bike was shoved right under the metal thing, so I had to yank that out. And after the supermarket, I wanted to go down and see, because my mom is buried up there. I wanted to go down and see my mother's grave, right? So anyway, Paddy, make a long story short, I got from the store to Mary Brown's. You know what I'm talking about, right? Black Marsh Road there?
Got it. Yep.
All right. Now, Paddy, I'm getting ready to go. And when they kicked that bike broke, the back wheel came off, and I could have been killed. Only the good Lord knows I have lots of experience on the bike, and I had to wrenches on me, right? So I just want to know, what kind of advice would you advise me to do?
Well, it's unfortunate that as opposed to asking, "Hey, what are you doing with that bike? Is that your bike?" Because you would have had a key for the lock and those types of things, or knew the combination. So they could have gone, just started at the beginning, as opposed to jump to the very end and assume that you were stealing the bike. That's one. And help me understand the issue regarding the rear wheel. Are you saying someone purposefully loosened the bolt?
Yeah, well, they kicked it, see, Paddy. Excuse me for crying, okay? This is a bad month for me, for my mom and my girlfriend. They died, right? Anyway, yes, the two nuts came off the back wheel deliberately. They kicked it, see? They kicked it right underneath. And when I hauled it out, I didn't realize I was going down the road to change gears on it, and she wouldn't change gears, and the wheel was wobbly. So the good Lord knows I turned the bike upside down, the nuts are arms off.
Well, they would have the kicking on camera. So you're saying the security guard kicked the bike, or you're not sure, but someone kicked it?
I am so upset and humiliated with these people, Paddy. I don't know if it's security, but I don't think it's a pass fire. I don't think, because, that's another thing I want to say to you. All I asked everybody, I said, look, the lock is on the bike. I can't find my key. I got to go home, right? And I said, you don't have to go out and babysit my bike, because you guys got cameras everywhere we're moving, right? You know what I'm saying?
Sure. So when you came back with the key, nothing else happened?
No, that's what I want to put in there now, my buddy.
Okay.
I got to get a hacksaw. My brother lost the key. I couldn't find it, so I had to hacksaw it out. And yes, it was taking me an hour to do it, right? And I am riddled with anxiety and depression, right?
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. So, very quickly before I get to the news, now you have the bike and everything's back in order and you're all right, other than being upset.
I can't ride. Yeah, well, I can't ride the bike. Paddy, I just want to mention one thing to you, Paddy, please. Just one. It'll only take 10 seconds, 20 seconds. My friend just passed away in the housing here. Now that place up there, Paddy, has been there 6 months. When do they come in and clean them out?
Well, it should be quicker than 6 months. I don't know what the formal schedule it is, but sounds like a very long time. 6 months.
Yeah, and Buddy was my friend. He trusted me much. He came in, gave me a big hug. He said, "Oh, take care of my apartment." 3 hours later, he wasn't even calling the ground. Someone knocked for the keys, one of the reds, whatever, right? 'Cause you can't say too much, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I'm sorry to hear about your loss and your mom and the rest of it. I appreciate the call.
Patty, can I just say one thing? If there's anybody out there that would love to donate a bike to Oral, I'll even give you my phone number. It's only for transportation for this my lady friend in the wheelchair.
Okay. I have your phone number. We'll keep it.
Oh, God love you, my buddy.
No problem
Patty,
at all.
you out in Alberta, weren't you? You were out in Alberta, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
I was out for 20 years, Patty.
Yeah, I did the 90s.
Yeah, just when I left, bud.
Yeah.
Patty, I'd love for you to love Premier because you'd have my vote and lots of more.
I wish I had a bike for you. I'm off to the news, Earl. You take good care of yourself.
Yabba dabba do, bro.
Take good care. Thanks a lot. All right, there we go.
Okay, baby, okay. Patty. Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, appreciate the patience of those in the queue. We'll begin with Crystal. Wants to talk about the offer that the province has made to the home care workers. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. Crystal, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Doing okay, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm calling now about the offer, I guess, that NAPE has come up with for the group of 22 home care workers. Previously known as a group of, I think, 19. It's changed over the years. I guess, I'm pretty frustrated with the whole thing as a whole, but I do have some points here that I'm more frustrated about than others. So if you just bear with me, and I'll just get through them. I recently went to our local meeting on Saturday night past, just so that I could clarify some concerns that I had and get some answers for that. But I think, and I've been doing home care for about 19 years. I started when I was 18. Actually soon be 20 years. I'll soon be 38 years old. So I've been at this a long time, and I've seen a lot of things over those years, as I imagine many home care workers feel the same way. But I guess the biggest thing that people are frustrated about right now, myself included, are the wages. Right now, home care workers currently at $17.05 per hour. Minimum wage at $15.60 right now. So it's a $1.45 gap. If you take into consideration that we pay union dues, whereas a minimum wage worker does not, we don't even have a $1.45 gap right now. And I think it's fair to say that our work requires a lot more responsibility than the average minimum wage job. You know, we're keeping clients in their home, and we're caring for them. We care for them just the same as if they're our own family, really. The offer right now is to bring us to $20.15 over 4 years, with a current rate to change 95 cents, effective retro to April the 1st of this year. So I'm pretty frustrated about that because I do feel like it isn't enough. I want to also clarify that in the last contract that we had for the previous 4 years, we had only gotten 50 cents. So it's been a long time with little increase. There's a lot of talk going around right now about staff who want to strike. You know, and that's a scary thought for a lot of people, because if you can't live off $17 an hour, how are you going to live off strike pay? For one. Second to that, I mean, most of us do care a lot about our clients. So what happens to our clients in the event of a strike? I did, too, just read from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives a recommendation to bring minimum wage to $20 an hour by 2027. If that were to happen, come 2027, minimum wage and home care workers have a gap of 15 cents. In addition to that, and I'll just run down through the other things before we chat about it, you know, a big thing that home care workers wanted to see in this contract was medical benefits. And the union has told us that the agency will offer medical benefits by 2025. They have 1 year to implement it. However, the agency or the union is unable to tell us what those benefits will look like, what they will cost us, what will come out of our checks bi-weekly for this, what type of coverage we will have. I mean, depending on, I guess, which avenue they use, it would be different. And it would be mandatory that every staff member have it. So while it is important for some, it's not the case for everyone that they would need that. The only way it wouldn't be mandatory is if you could provide proof that you already have a medical benefits package. The next thing that I want to point out that is big, and it's been talked about for quite some time, but they want to bring in classification of clients. So what that means is that, and if you work in home care, you work with a lot of different people. You work with your basic, elderly person who needs, I guess, home maintenance and meal preparation, medication administration. But then there are home care workers who are working with individuals who have mental health issues, intellectual disabilities, behavioral issues. There's palliative care. And then the biggest one, I guess, I want to touch on is advanced care. So what we want to see is, because working for different people requires a different level of care, it should require a different level of pay. Essentially, right now, there is one behavioral rate that is available to my knowledge. I don't know all the details on it. I don't know what the difference in pay is, but it's not being used in my area. I'm not aware of a single client who gets that rate of pay. And I've always been led to believe that a social worker is who would determine if the client, I guess, is deemed suitable for this rate of pay.
Well, it would be the social worker responsible for the classification, wouldn't it?
Yes. So basically, I guess my issue with the classification is that the union is suggesting that we vote this contract in right now, but we don't have all the details. Like with the medical benefits, we don't know how much it'll cost. The agency has a year to put it in, and we don't know what it'll cost, et cetera, when time comes. The same goes for this classification. The union is suggesting we vote this contract in, but we don't know, and they have 2 years to implement this. They want this implemented by 2026. We have no idea how they will classify them. We have no idea what the difference in rate of pay will be. We really have no idea what the whole picture of it will look like in 2 years' time. And then, I'll just run down through my other couple comments, and then we can certainly discuss it. Home care workers in this province, or at least the ones in this group of 22, and I asked this question at our local meeting on Saturday night, we are not essential workers. We are not considered essential workers in this province. Whereas I feel we are the backbone to healthcare in this province. We're the reason that, if we go on strike, where do these people go? I work in a home right now that's 24-hour care, and that person requires care 24 hours around the clock. They have a staff member there all the time. Total care, you have to do everything. We were told that, if we went on strike, we walk away from our clients. And, I know I'm upset about the wages, and I would like to see us getting paid more. And I think a lot of people would have even been happy with $20 an hour right now, not over the span of 4 years. At least that's the general census I'm getting from the people I've been talking to. But I guess to get to my point, too, there's a lot of members that are not registered with the union, despite the fact that when you go to work as a home care worker, your first paycheck, your union dues start coming in. But until you make contact with that union, you are not registered. And I think it's important that home care workers in this province need to reach out to the union. They need to become a member. We are set to vote on this contract between June the 10th and June the 13th, so next week. And, I think it's important that people educate themselves on what we're voting in and the fact that and make sure you can actually vote.
Quick question. What is the issue regarding medical benefits? Because interestingly, just last week it was announced that medical benefits will be extended to early childhood educators. So what exactly is being offered on the medical benefits front?
So right now, what the union is telling us is that the agencies that we work for, and when I say group of 22, I want to clarify that's 22 different agencies in this province.
4,000 workers.
Yeah, I think my union rep threw out the number 5,500 on Saturday night, approximately 5,500. So that's 22 different agencies that will vote this in. 22 agencies, they have 1 year. If this were to be ratified come June the 13th, next week, then the agencies will have 1 year to implement a program or offer medical benefits. They will pay 50% of the medical benefits, but again, we don't know what the cost will be in total or what the cost per member will be. That would come directly off your check. They're saying that every home care worker will have to have it unless you can provide proof that you already have it somewhere else through, I don't know, maybe your husband or et cetera. So, you know, I have a lot of issues with voting in things that are not solidified, I guess. We don't know all the ins and outs of it. And at the end of the day, the union is telling us, well, they got a quote for some numbers. They could be looking at around $38 bi-weekly coming out of your check. Dental benefits would be offered. The agencies would cover none of that cost, but you could add it on at a cost to yourself if you wish, which is fine. I see an issue with it being mandatory for everybody. Not everybody's needs are the same. Some people don't need benefits right now. I know, you know, some people need it. It's an extra paycheck for some people.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I mean, the summary point of you're not comfortable voting in something that is not fleshed out to the, you know, all the nitty-gritty of the details, fair enough. I'd feel the exact same way. So NAPE is recommending that you vote it through?
Yeah, and you know, right now the way it was explained to me on Saturday night is that you know, you have your NAPE employees who work on our behalf, I guess, or represent us, but then they have home care workers who. And there's 22 of them apparently involved in this contract in particular. There's 22 home care workers from different agencies, like a couple from each area, I guess, that when NAPE goes to the table and they, you know, come up with an agreement, they bring it back to these 22 people, and these 22 people recommend whether or not we accept it or not. 22 people is a small percentage of what, of a potential 5,500 employees. Like, you know what I mean?
I do.
And you know, I don't want to nitpick, but like I know in some cases, like I see a retired woman who's working as a home care worker bringing in a pension. The raise might not mean the same to her as it does to me. You know, in the last 4 years of this contract that we got a 50-cent raise, Patty, you know, my grocery bill has gone up. What I'm bringing home is less. My light bill has gone up, and it's set to rise again in the coming months. My mortgage rate has gone up. You know, our gas bills, well, they fluctuate, but let's face it, they're up. Everything is up except for our wages. And I think I'm upset that it's just not enough. And I think a lot of people are, which is why there's a lot of talk going around right now about strike. And I think it's important that the union and the government, because at the end of the day, this money for us doesn't come from agency. It does. The agency is an avenue to pay us. The money is coming from government. If the agency cannot receive the money from government, they cannot pay it to us. And we're not considered essential workers. So,
and of course you are. I mean, there's actually a senior summit in Ottawa today and tomorrow talking about aging in place, which cannot happen without home care workers. We actually had the seniors advocate, I think, who's joining us tomorrow morning to talk about issues like this. We'll reach out to NAPE and see if they can fill in some of the blanks on your behalf for your other friends or home care workers who are asking the same questions. I appreciate the call. I've got to get to the break. Okay, Crystal?
Thank you so much, Patty. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, there we go. Lots of concerns there, valid as well. Let's take a break. When we get back, Sean's here to talk about healthcare wait times. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Sean, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Good morning. How you doing?
Best kind. How about you?
Okay, super duper. Actually, just sitting in here in Montreal, overlooking the water here. It's a beautiful day, 27 degrees. Patty, I was going to give you a call 2 weeks ago to this day, I think, when I heard Jerry Byrne on giving Len Paddock the gears over the fact that, to some degree, in my opinion, he did a faux pas where he named a couple of countries that perhaps these people didn't stay here in the province, and therefore we were bringing people in to provide, medical expertise, and this wasn't working out. That was the suggestion, and in my opinion, the only mistake that Len made was actually naming those people. What I'd like to know is what is the real statistics on that. And to me, if you were trying to get somebody to do anything with a company or otherwise when you were hiring people, it would seem to make very logical baseline sense to attract people who liked where they were going, liked the people, liked the environment, and wanted to stay here. Now, I'm not going to beat that to death, but I'm not aware of Len Paddock, and I don't study politics a whole lot, of being a racist outside a few mistakes that he possibly made, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, there's real-life implications, though, Sean, isn't there? I mean, it was just it was really ham-fisted. I don't know what's in Mr. Paddock's heart, but when there's two predominantly brown countries identified as a potential problem and a predominantly white country proposed as a solution, it's a bit odd. And secondly, over the last 5 years, apparently the numbers are some 53 or 58, I can't remember which one, doctors from India and Pakistan have been hired, and exactly 0 from Germany. I don't know if there's a big German community here, but I do know there's plenty of Indian and Pakistani doctors here. I was also told as a follow-up that 43 of those doctors are still here. I'll add to it, in the new recruitment effort, every doctor hired, regardless of where they're from, graduates from Mon, from Toronto, from the UK, from Ireland, from India, Pakistan, Germany, wherever, they have to sign a 5-year return on service. So we've got them all for at least 5 years. The last point I'll make is, unless you're from here, there's a possibility you're going to leave here for elsewhere. I mean, I just think that stands to reason. Regardless if you're Ukrainian or Russian or German or Irish, or I guess the Irish are a bit more likely to stay, and or Indian or Pakistani. So there might be greener fields somewhere on the mainland. There may indeed be a larger community you want to be part of, but we've got you all for 5-year service regardless of where you're from.
Yeah, and that's right. But the little point that I make, and I don't want to beat it to death, but to me, in my opinion, the rant that Jerry Byrne got on, almost pulling the Greta Thunberg on this to him, that I just thought that was out of place. Like, if this man, has serious deep roots in racism, and this was just, it all getting out of the bag, so be it. But the fundamental point that I think is still valid is that we got to make sure that we have people that want to stay here. And I'm going to lead into something else right quick, is apparently, I think it was CBC News, 120 doctors in Newfoundland have not reinstated their license. Now, I don't know if they're old or they moved or what it is, but fact is 120 doctors didn't reinstate their license. The other thing is, Patty, we all know 167,000, 34% of Newfoundlanders do not have a GP. So whoever is out there now, Tom Osborne or others, and they're fixing the problem, that problem hasn't changed, and it's a disastrous problem. And the fact that somebody can say, and maybe we're supposed to get solitude in the fact that, yes, it's like that everywhere in Canada, and I don't know what that's supposed to tell me, Patty, that everybody else in Canada has had the same dysfunctional plans that we have in Newfoundland, and it's not working out. I mean, that's disastrous.
I just think there's
a
shortage.
Going to get on this. What? Yeah, there's a shortage, but that's a plan. There should have been a plan to foresee this. There should have been a plan to deal with this 7 years ago. And the fact that people are getting older, and actually I looked up those statistics the other day too, the percentage of Newfoundlanders that are over 50, I think, and it's the same as everywhere else in Canada. Like, we're not a mystery province. No. People age.
The numbers do
we're not having new kids.
The numbers do get a little bit different when you talk about over the age of 60 and 65. Then all of a sudden the numbers are really heavily skewed. But, I mean, you're not wrong. There's an issue right across the country here, but in this province, look, the writing's been on the wall for quite a long time. And there's been, I don't know if there's been little to nothing or very much, look, I don't know how to couch it, but this has been developing for quite a long time. Interestingly, to point out to those numbers, and those numbers came from the College of Physicians and Surgeons. This is not just plucked out of thin air. So 122 family doctors in 21 and 22 did not renew their license. But they did not elaborate on what that means. Does it mean that a certain percentage of those doctors retired? Does it mean that they have left the province to register elsewhere, left the country to register elsewhere? We don't know. And which is not helpful because information is power. Inside that same time frame, 122 did not re-register. 115 new licenses were issued, so a net loss of 7.
Yeah, but still, we haven't fixed the 167,000 people problem. Like we're barely holding ground, gaining on irrelevant figures. It's going to extrapolate that out for 200 years, and maybe we'll fix the problem if enough people die. But I'm going to say something now where the rubber hits the road, Patty. And I had an immediate family member. This is obviously now Monday. Thursday night had a serious motorcycle accident. Luckily, it was low speed. Their foot is detached from their femur and tibia, or the tibula and fibula. They're home now with the cast on. They were supposed to go in, the accident was Thursday afternoon. They were supposed to go in today. There was no beds in the hospital. There was nowhere for them to stay. They're home now on the couch with a partial cast on, with bone scraping on bone. They were supposed to go in today for a pre-op for an emergency surgery that's going to require 4 incisions of some sort. The doctors told them that this is probably one of the worst crushes that they've seen in a leg. Can't believe how this person has even been able to articulate vocally with such pain. Today got bumped again. Can't go in today. The person on the phone says, well, sir, you got to realize that you got bumped because there's 2 people that are going to lose their limbs. And there was another person, and the person says to him, are we going to get into a debate now over the priority or where I am in the pecking order of trying to get my foot sewn back on? And then he said he's out of meds. He's been out of meds. This is Monday, out of meds since yesterday morning. The doctors won't prescribe the meds at the hospital because he's not there. So they tell him, go to your local family doctor. Your local family doctor will not prescribe those types of meds. They tell him to go to a local clinic, and he's been there for other reasons in the past. They will not do it either. So they just send you off into some oblivious, like, we can't deal with you here, like, go away. And I'm not at all in any way chastising anybody in the medical system because they're saints. They have a devotion from every experience that I had. But, Patty, you know what? They're not going to put up with this for much longer. Running people ragged, having people work in emergency rooms where there's just no relief, and it's like a MASH unit. Like, when there was 7 other motorcycle accidents that came in on Thursday night, and he was bumped. But he was in the hallway for about a day with his brother, and finally they kicked him out of the hallway. Now he's home. So he's got a detached foot, and God only knows, they told him if he doesn't watch what he's doing and he gets a blood clot, he could die instantly. That's where we are with our medical system, Patty. Not Jerry Burns standing on his friggin' Greta Thunberg orange crate complaining about Len Rideout.
Yeah, I don't know what the Greta Thunberg attachment is, but I'll leave it that alone.
Well, I'll tell you. She gets on an orange crate and says, how dare you? And that's what I got out of Jerry Byrne,
All right.
Just an opportunity to stand on his orange crate and try to chastise somebody when the fundamental problem is we have a deep-rooted problem with our medical system that's not being fixed.
Sean, where are you getting the 167,000 people without a family doctor? The last numbers I saw from the NLMA was 136. The province says 50. So there should be a way for us to come up with a much firmer, much more verifiable number. So where are you getting
CBC. CBC. It was a CBC article about 2 weeks ago. I wrote it down.
167,000.
That's always been the number.
No, for the longest while it was 125. Then the update from the Medical Association was 136, and the province refutes it and says 50. I'll have a look and see if I can see a story with 167 because that's not a number I'm familiar with. Okay.
But anyway, I'll wind it up at that, and the only thing that I'm saying is we can talk about whatever statistics you want, even, Patty. I certainly don't mean to diminish what you're saying, but when the rubber hits the road, it's Monday. Serious accident Thursday. If you're lucky, you're going to get an operation this Thursday coming because of the load on our system.
Yeah, I get it. And I was only offering numbers and stats as, points of context, not to obfuscate anything. Because if we don't use numbers, we're just talking about emotions.
No, and I'm a numbers guy. Okay. But I appreciate it, Patty. All I want to do is make that, and I apologize to some degree because it is an immediate family member of mine who I was just talking to, and they're in racks of pain. They can't get pain medication, and they have no idea when they're going to get in.
I hope that gets resolved ASAP. In form of trying to access some pharmaceutical care, maybe try Dr. Todd Young at Medicuro. That might get a prescription through there because you don't have a family doctor, so that might help.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate the time. I wish you and your family the best.
Thank you kindly.
Okay, Sean. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is a note from a gentleman who attended one of the convocation ceremonies. So he says, I attended the nursing grad from MUN on Friday. There were 103 graduates. These grads came from numerous countries. Of the 103 students, over 93% will be staying here in the province. They've accepted job offers here, which is good. Now, one of the concerns there is whether or not they're getting enough permanent full-time job offers versus temporary full-time job offers, which comes with a distinct change in the benefits package. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go line number 4. Chesley, you're on the air.
Yes, good day, Patty. First time on the air.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I have some concerns with being a single parent and how I don't really have the supports I need as a single dad with 3 kids in the system. And I feel like I'm always put on the back burner and I'm being screwed into the ground by all the different services systems around town.
What's happening?
Well, I've been crying out for help. The house I'm living in, I guess, wasn't inspected when I came in here, and I had to take it. It was all that was available, other than, digging my way back in the streets. I end up here. And it's kind of like the most deplorable house in the city, to be quite honest, which is like third world country, man. The dryer vents into the basement into a bucket. I can smell feces. It's falling off the other house. There's no structure underneath, no insulation in the flooring, no vapor barrier. I got to wear my boots all the time. The plumbing and the window blew at the bathroom, broke the window, complained, and he said, well, it was fine when you moved in. It don't fit the sash, he's a Band-Aid man. So that brings me to, landlords that are not looking after their units, right? And I've been crying out for help through the system, and they last year said, yeah, we'll get you a nicer place, work on that. And I don't have those supports, I reached out to John Howard, I reached out to Thrive, I reached out to the Gathering Place, and a number of others, Stella Circle, and I'd kind of like to have my file all brought to one table and let these people see that I'm trying so hard to stay on track with all this while they have my kids in the system at 3 different facilities and me at this one, And not only that, Patty, I got a letter 6 months ago saying the rent was going up $400. So now it's $1,800, And it's not very good, I turned the water on when I came in the first week. It blew the tap right off the bathroom wall, And he doesn't want me to repair his house. And if I put in a list of repairs, you're going to need a backhoe to remove the house, It's that bad. So what is it with the system? I'm thinking that they can't get me a counselor or a worker of some kind to get me on track for my kids to come home in the near future. Those kinds of things are really bothering me. It's causing me, a lot of depressed days, and this home causes me so much depression and crying out for help and not getting the services. I feel like a spin top there, ready to give it all up, Stress. This home.
So the concern is all about the state of the home.
Well, that and the fact that the system in this province, digging my way back in the streets, never provided the necessary supports, and I'm still crying out for them, and I don't know what to do, Patty. I really don't know what to do.
On top of the structural deficiencies in the home, you're talking about other supports. What exactly are we talking about?
Well, if my kids are in the system as they are, and I'm a single parent struggling with life, digging my way back from the streets, Patty, I was given shelter. It was a closet off a bedroom. Those people are getting $300 a day per person. 10 people in the home, $3,000, and then it goes on to 12 months. And next thing you know, I'm getting $51 every 2 weeks to live in a closet, where supper time is 6 o'clock, and you got to bang on the basement door to get a block of lasagna at the freezer that takes an hour and a half to cook and 30 minutes to cool down. No toilet paper, no phone to use. Those type of facilities for a single parent like myself with the kids in the system trying to get on track. Not easy, brother.
No, it doesn't sound easy at all. How old are the kids?
I got twins that are 13 and an 18-year-old just turned 18.
And what kind of support specifically are you looking for the children?
Well, the children are in home cares, and they were premature. We're all lucky to be here. The mom has passed. We lost a son. We lost a brother, and a sister, and the kids. And it's been a battle, brother. And I'm looking for someone to sit down with me and bring all this paperwork to the table, and someone to work with my family, to prepare for the kids to come home, because court is in September. I had court last week, and they canceled it 2 hours prior to. And I've been reaching out to lawyers and asking them to call me and explaining my situation, but it seems as though it's all going...
Do you not have a social worker assigned to you, Chesley?
Well, I may have, but I don't see the supports. And then, of course, I don't take any meds, and I'm not prescribed anything. I think I need a psychiatrist. I think I got PTSD and, OCD. I got a lot of things going on, brother. And
it sounds like it. Look, first, you're not going to be able to take care of anybody else unless you're taking care of yourself. So if you need some mental health support, try at least some of the support lines and try to get in the queue to get someone who's a formal counselor, hopefully sooner than later. So that I would start with. And secondly, you have to get in touch with the department, and that's just this fundamental question. Do I and my file have a social worker by name attached to it? And if so, then schedule a meeting so you can paint this picture and get direct feedback from people who actually understand the moving parts inside the department. So those two things, that's what I would start with. And of course, that won't fix the house, but it'd probably be a very good start to try to ease some of your worried mind and try to plot out the next steps so that you can get where you need to be.
Yeah, perfect, Mr. Daly. That's great. I'm going to take that avenue for sure. But there's so many boarded up units around the city that could have been open. And brother, I have mad skills. I've been a carpenter all my life. I've been crying out for supports and help, and I could be a part of the team that ends homelessness and beyond Newfoundland and Labrador. But I don't have the avenue. It seems as though. I spoke to a lady just the other day about the condition of the home, and I showed her some photos. And she's got it on TikTok, and apparently, and I'm trying to get in there to comment on some of the things, but it's getting lots of hits, and it's a shame, Patty. The senior goes to the grocery store and got the $100 bill in one hand, and do I buy the ground beef or pay the $100 bill?
I hear you. The making choices about what bill gets paid next and in what order and what the severity of it is. Look, I think there's a lot of folks who not that long ago didn't have that day-to-day worry, but now do. So, Chesley, do me a favor. Make those 2 calls and then get back to me and let me know if you've had any luck. And if not, I'll try to figure out something else so I can try to get you some help as best possible.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much for that advice, and you enjoy the rest of your day, young man.
You too, Chesley. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. At the bottom of the preamble, I may have, or apparently I did, misspeak, which is going to happen, right, when you're doing the old live radio. So when referencing the amount of bonuses paid out to federal government bureaucrats, whether it be in Crown corporations or otherwise, and apparently I said somewhere at least once $400,000, which of course is kind of not huge money, but it's $400 million. And I did read out that the specific number across all federal government departments and Crown corps and agencies was $406,422,221. Since 2015, those bonuses have tallied $1.5 billion. Let's take the lost cat. Will I hear before I go, Dave? All right, let's go to line number 5. Good morning, Gary. You're on the air.
Hi, Betty.
Hi there.
Me and my woman was really disappointed and heartbroken. We lost our cat on Thursday. She was a black and white cat with a black and white face. We adopted her at the Humane Society when she was 8 weeks old. She's only 2 years old now. We treated her like a queen. She got 4 different kinds of food here. The closet is full. She was a lovable cat. She never left the door. And all of a sudden, we looked, and she just vanished.
Sorry to hear that. What's the cat's name?
Angel.
Angel. Fitting. All right, so Angel's missing as of last Thursday. Whereabouts are you folks?
We're just across from Tim Hortons on Thorburn Road.
Okay, on the Thorburn Road area. Does Angel have on a collar?
No, she don't.
Okay, so she's a house cat.
Yeah, and she's afraid of people too. Like, I can't say how come she went and ran away, because like if somebody came in the walkway, she'd run in the high street.
Okay, so folks, keep your eyes peeled, and even if Angel is a bit skittish, even if the best you can do is to let us know or let Gary know directly so that we can go out on the search. You want to give out your number live on the air or just leave it with David?
I can give it on the air if you want.
Fire away.
Well, my woman's number is 237 5723.
Okay.
And my cell phone number is 567
Okay.
1504.
Okay, I've got the numbers here. So Gary's lady's number is 709-237-5723, and Gary's is 709-567-1504. We'll keep it on hand, Gary. Fingers crossed.
And Patty, I just want to say, if anybody's out there that got her or took her or whatever, she's very afraid of people. She needs to be looked after like we looked after her. She's an adorable cat. And she's frightened of the people, so I don't know how she's doing wherever she's to. But I got the Thorburn Road area covered by foot ever since Thursday. I'm in the woods. I'm all over the place. I'm at combing everywhere.
Yeah, and hopefully someone else who's got their eyes peeled now will spot Angel and give you a shout. Gary, fingers crossed. Let me know what happens.
Okay, thank you, Patty.
You're welcome, sir. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Let's take a break. When we come back, Shelley's had an issue with the bank. What? We'll find out. Food fishery conversation, the Placentia Hospital, the Health Sciences Centre, and whatever you want to talk about right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 1. Barry, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
I'm calling you this morning, Patty, out of frustration over the food fishery announcement. No announcement still. We have the Maritimes in Quebec recreational fishery announced in the books, in the papers since God knows how long, and here we are still waiting every day to day for an announcement of our beloved food fishery. It's unbelievable, and couple that with their federal politicians, their federal MPs, Liberal MPs, that is. We got a lot of respect for Clifford Small. He reminds me of George Baker, where he stands up in the House of Commons in defense of things. But when I guarantee you, Patty, when my Liberal MP comes to my door during election time, she's going to be met with the same thing as what we're met with, and that's silence, and what they've come to be known as the Silent Six. It's unbelievable. They voted against the SEAL initiative, against the gun policy, and now they're not even speaking up for us about the food fishery. I've been calling them, Patty, all over the years about food fishery, and still we can't get any kind of clear initiative of what they're going to do again this year.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I know where you're coming from. So last year, the announcement came on the 20th of June to tell us that it opened up on the 1st of July. And as someone mentioned last week, you know full well that the decisions have been made, and why they sit on it is anybody's guess, because I have no earthly idea. Inside, and I mean, I don't know if this is the entirety of the Maritimes, but for their spring-summer food fishery or ground fishery for 2024. So it's the Gulf of St. Lawrence, one particular estuary, and some other areas, the Saguenay Fjord or something maybe. And that announcement came on the 17th of April. Or the 18th of April, one or the other, and they've identified their targets from the 15th of April to the end of June, I believe, and then August 7th to sometime in October, July 1st to August the 6th, and then returning again in the fall. So we have some information, but I'm not so sure that's the entirety of it, because this is North Shore, Magdalen Islands kind of info, isn't it?
Yes, it's listed for Quebec and maritime provinces. And for maritime provinces, Patty, it's the recreational food fishery for codfish. It begins in third weekend of June, I believe, if memory serves, right to the end of Labor Day, every day. Now that's incredible. They can say what they want. There's not as many people, there's not as many fish, this, that, and everything else that we've been hearing over the years. But the fact of the matter is, we deserve to have an announcement, and we deserve to have an announcement made earlier than this, the same as the Maritimes. I'm not taking anything away from them trying to compare them to us or anything else. But when you have the sister province just across the way getting things that different than us, why is that?
I sure don't have an answer. I have no earthly idea what's coming, but I'll be shocked if it's any different than what we had last year. Almost exactly the same, whether it be 39 days and the gap between the end of the summer fishery and the introduction of the fall fishery. When compared and contrast, it really does feel vastly different and patently unfair. I don't even know if there's ever been a justification offered as to why it's so different between the Maritimes and us. I just don't know, because they've got ample opportunity. Now, we can make arguments about safety and all the rest of it, which is what some people do. They'll say, inside that compressed offering of 39 days, what happens if the weather's not conducive? And people will take a chance, which we shouldn't be offering people excuses as to why they take risks when they talk about going for a few codfish. But the arguments, whether you pick the safety angle and or the fairness angle, they're all legitimate to me. And again, last one for me, and I'll let you wrap it up. The fact that they waited until the 11th hour to tell us, just so people can be frustrated or disappointed or however they're going to feel when it's the same announcement as last year, I don't know why they do that to themselves, to be honest.
Absolutely, Paddy, absolutely. It's mind-boggling, it's flabbergasting, and it's frustrating. Look at this announcement they just made, DFO just made last week for the redfish quota. They announced it after closing business hours here in Newfoundland and Labrador, so we wouldn't get a chance to respond. Now that's not my part of the game at all. That's the commercial. I'm just saying. But and as well, Paddy, one other point. That is, I wish that DFO would friggin' finally clue up the boat limit issue. It's 15. Is it 15 fish per boat, or is it 5 fish per person? And DFO, Paddy, when I uncovered it, I sent you the emails. It said that clearly, if there's 5 people in a boat that can safely hold 5 people, the boat limit, the personal daily limit, is 5 fish per person, not 15 fish. You can come in with 25 fish and you will not be charged.
Well, that's sort of the summary of what they said. They didn't. What they really said is that they won't charge it, not that it's allowed or that they like it or they accepted that. And I think it said pretty specifically in the email that the reason they keep saying 5 per person, 15 per boat, is try to keep people's catches down, as opposed to, you're right, the email was quite clear. If you came in with 5 people in the boat, everyone had 5, no one's going to get charged. So they owe us just a bit of a clear definition. All of their ulterior motives about hoping to keep the catches down, well, just say that out loud. Give people recommendations with no gray area, no having to read between the lines. Just be straight up. Here's what's going on.
I was very clear, Paddy, when I uncovered that. We're not looking for more fish. We're just looking for equality. Paddy, if you got 5 people and under the current way it is, you're only allowed 15 fish per boat. That means that I'm going to go out with 3 people in the boat, myself and 2 other people in the boat the first trip, and then come back in, process fish, and take the other 2 out. Well, Paddy, 25 fish is 25 fish no matter what way you look at it. You look at it 25 different ways, it's still 25 fish for 5 people.
Yeah, you're right. I've got to get to the news, but anything else quickly, Barry?
Yes, Paddy. I just wish that they would make an announcement and make it fair for everybody. And right across the table, if the Maritimes are having from the third weekend in June to the Labor Day weekend, so should we. Are we a different country? Are we in a different province in a different country? What the heck is it? It's unbelievable, the frustration that is every year. It's the same thing.
Points
and
taken.
We got our asylum 6 up there, not saying a word.
Thanks, Barry. Got to get to the news.
Thank you very much, Patty. It's always been a pleasure.
Mine too. Thank you, Barry. Bye-bye. Very quickly, when we come back, there's some questions offered by Crystal regarding the new offer to the home care workers that she says NAPE is encouraging them to sign, but she had questions about the rate of pay and if we're on a track to see minimum wage at X level by 2027, then the narrow the gap between pay for home care workers and the medical benefits confusion. The president of NAPE, Jerry Earle, is up right after the newscast. Will broach that and maybe some of the integrated air and road ambulance service, which is now in action as a result of this past weekend. And just a quick interesting sports note. Corey Perry becomes the first player in NHL history to play in the Stanley Cup final with 5 different franchises: Anaheim, Montreal, Dallas, Tampa Bay, and now Edmonton. That's kind of cool. Let's take a break. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to the president of NAPE. That's Jerry Earl. Jerry, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty, to you and your listening audience.
Welcome back to the show. Let's start with the obvious. Is NAPE recommending to the group of 22 that they accept this offer?
The NAPE negotiating team, made up of 22 frontline home care workers elected at their convention, that went to the bargaining table and negotiated this agreement along with staff negotiators, are making a recommendation of acceptance based on what they went through at the bargaining table, the information that they were provided to them, and what they had knowledge of. And that's what they're doing now, Patty, again in a democratic process, going out to their co-workers across Newfoundland and Labrador, presenting information so that home care workers themselves can make a determination on what they feel when the vote period opens, which is June the 10th to the 13th, and the first time where home care workers will have 3.5 days, no matter where they are, to actually vote under contract rather than at a meeting where, like on Saturday night, if they went to a meeting, they have to make up their mind that night. They get to go away, consult, and then vote during that process in an open vote to all home care workers that we represent in the province.
Is that number 4,000 or 5,500? I've heard both.
It's a little over 4,000, actually. There's probably around 5,000 home care workers in the province. We represent around 4,500 of those home care workers. So there's still a couple of agencies that are non-union, actually.
Okay, so Crystal called and she says she doesn't have the details. So you're telling me that there will be information sessions for all of these workers to ask their questions, then they get 3.5 days before they're asked to vote.
Yeah, there's 24 meetings happening across the entire province. We have 2 negotiators along with members of that team that's conducting these meetings. Every night there's a minimum of 2 meetings. Sometimes we're doing afternoon and night. There's actually a video that they can go on and watch. There's web page set up, Facebook page set up, and then IntelliVote, a separate entity that's being contracted by NAPE, will actually do an online vote, and they can vote whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You can vote if you're on vacation in PEI. Not a new process, something that we've used in the public sector now, first time ever used in home care. So these information sessions are taking place so people can have a chance to meet in person if they want, but there's also an online process. There's a video, I think that's 12, 14 minutes long, that will give a summation that people can watch. And again, Patty, this bargaining was extremely difficult. And again, and just for your knowledge in the process, we held a convention last fall of home care workers across the entire province. Close on 100 came into St. John's. They duly elected representatives of themselves to sit on the negotiating team with 2 professional. The only thing you got to imagine challenging, we were in a bargaining room with 44 to 46 people because the employer had just as many on their side of the table, and people don't realize we had actually walked away from the bargaining table, our negotiating team, and in the 11th hour, some things changed that the team felt was significant enough change to take it back to the membership with the recommendation that that team is making to their co-workers across Newfoundland and Labrador.
What's the pay offer?
The pay offer, unfortunately, I can confirm what was probably said. Policy in NAPE prevents me from actually, I'm one person that don't get a vote, and I don't actually get to go to these meetings. It's negotiators. So some of the figures I've just heard, I can confirm they are. I'm not permitted by policy to get on Openline or any program or try to advocate because it's their process. But like I say, a lot of work went into this to move the wages of home care workers, and some groundbreaking things. They did not have a group insurance plan. That's in place. Premiums around travel. A big piece, the professionalization of home care. Home care, recognized in Accord NL, is a key component of our healthcare system. It has never been looked at from the point of view of levels of care. Everybody was equivalent in the system, and today are still considered equivalent. Classifying the system as extremely complicated. So what we will do now, work with a tri-party committee of health community services, the agencies, and NAPE, and we will bring somebody in that's experienced in classification to determine, because nobody will certainly go below that determination. But as been talked about, we have home care workers that do end-of-life care, palliative care, deal with people that are able to stay at home, 24-hour care, and some just go in and do what we call home the basic level of care. So there's different, almost like if you go in healthcare, we have people that work at different levels. So what we envision, I would assume, would happen through a proper system, we will have levels of care and home care that will recognize the work that these incredible workers do. They were there through COVID. They're there today keeping people at home rather than have to go into long-term care or personal care. And I wish we were talking about things being done with the integration of road ambulance, which I believe we'll touch on. I wish to say what happened with home care, actually, because the problem is, Patty, when these home care workers sit at the bargaining table, they're negotiating with these profit-driven agencies, yet this is publicly funded, and those that are publicly funding this in health community services government do not sit at the bargaining table. So it's a really difficult process, because obviously the operators are sitting there thinking about what's my profit margin going to look like, whereas when we deal with government, we're not talking about profit, we're talking about the delivery of necessary service. So very complicated bargaining that I'm sure many may not understand, but it is extremely challenging. And all I can say is that 22 home care workers that were at the bargaining table did a commendable job this round of bargaining in some groundbreaking things that will happen for the first time ever for home care workers.
Can you help us understand what the offer is regarding medical benefits? Because that was one of Crystal's primary concerns.
Absolutely. And the establishment of a medical plan is always difficult. First of all, you have to see if the insurance industry is even prepared to do it. We were told years ago the insurance industry was not interested in home care. We know, in fact, they are. What we have actually established here, the home care team has established, we have a joint trust set up. That does not exist even in the public sector. So whatever this plan is going to look like, a joint trust representing home care and the employer will work with the insurance industry to develop a plan, and it's got to be implemented by April the 1st of next year, because, again, complicated to put in place. But home care workers will have a seat at the table in determining what this plan will look like. Yes, it'll be a mandatory plan, just the same as in the public sector or with any employer, because you can't have it where a benefit you can pick or choose unless you already can confirm that you do have coverage. For example, if your spouse works in the public sector, you won't have to buy dual coverage. But that's the whole point of a group insurance plan, because the volume of people in there keeps the costs down, where people don't pick and choose whether I want it, but you got to meet a threshold. And the insurance industry, Patty, determines that threshold, and they're saying you must have at least 25 hours of work in a week in order to be able to get into the group insurance program.
So is it a 50-50 cost share?
Yes, it will be.
Okay. And so the meetings will be there for the Crystals of the world to get all the details and questions to be answered. So anything else on that? Because I do want to talk about the ambulance service for a second.
No, all I can say is, Patty, I'd certainly encourage home care workers to go out to these meetings, review information, because as with anything, people get on Facebook and social media and share their opinions, and those opinions are valued. But I always say to individuals, look at the information, make your own decision, and whatever that decision is, their union will respect that decision. And I can show you on the areas of group insurance that their union, along with frontline representatives, will be certainly setting up a plan to the best of their ability that will be there for home care workers for the first time ever.
Fair enough. Integrated ambulance system. So we know that all the fragmented system has gone away. Everyone is inside this public system, hub and spoke, whatever the case may be. So the Teamsters are out. Did you inherit some paramedics because of that?
We will inherit paramedics in a number of areas in 4 to 5 zones across Newfoundland, because Newfoundland Health Service broke down in 5 zones now. We will inherit a number of EMS personnel, whether it be EMRs, PCPs, dispatchers, now that we can, as of yesterday, actually talk and meet with those individuals. That's already in the works, and yes, we will.
Okay. How was the seniority issue eventually handled?
Even without them being able to be at the table, what's happened with seniority, we recognize what the Labour Relations Board, Paddy, have done this province now, going back to the days when there was votes between 2 unions, NAPE and QP, back in the Grace and St. Clair's, and believe it or not, I was around for those. So we've respected what the Labour Relations Board have done in NAPE, and basically said if somebody have worked 20 years in the EMS system, irregardless of where they have worked, that service will be recognized. The roadblock we ran into until this is these private operators were using frontline workers, and I think I said this before, as bargaining chips. They would not share this information with Newfoundland Labrador Health Services to confirm when Jerry or Paddy started to work with their company. So there was no way of validating that. That's being worked through now, and if it comes down to a final thing, you can go through a process of sworn affidavits if that can't be confirmed. So that service will be recognized. If you were working for an ambulance service in Trepassey, private, and you've been working there for 20 years, dedicated to the people of that region, to EMS services, you will be recognized in this system, and I can only speak for NAPE because your service, you are deserving of that.
Yeah, fair enough. So it's not actually settled, my understanding?
No, it is, from our perspective, that is resolved. So the only thing might be in some cases, like say we could not communicate with, for example, in Conception Bay South, we could not communicate with those employees until now. So we will find out if that information has been shared now with Newfoundland Labrador Health Services. If there's 5 employees there or 25 there that have not had that confirmation, then we will work directly now with Newfoundland Labrador Health Services and Health Community Services to get that record. Now, like I said, it could be a process where it'll be a week, 2 weeks, where Jerry may have to have it confirmed that I did indeed start in 1991 with this company, because until now that company would not share that information with Newfoundland Labrador Health Services, and we had no other way of getting it without that company. And that was unbelievable that they actually used that as at the bargaining table while we were trying to buy back what we rightfully owned, paid for the last 30, 40 years.
Okay, so are we comforted with the integration as it currently stands? Like, I've even asked Rodney Goody and others about how it's going to work, and I'm not so sure that he knew in full. You know, things like how many regions are the so-called hub for the various spokes to be put out inside the region, doing away with some of the constraints regarding some of the private service in the past. So can you just paint us a very clear Coles Notes picture about how it's supposed to work?
Paddy, from my understanding, we have groups that have been working through the entire province of Newfoundland Labrador, is broke down into zones now within the regional health zone, because the regional health authority is 5 zones, but when I'm talking about the EMS service, it's even smaller areas broke down in, for want of a better term, response zone that they'll be responsible for. For example, the metro region here in St. John's now is a zone that won't change, but if we got into a situation now, we would not have to see can the private operator in CBS send in a unit, because Newfoundland Labrador Health Services operates the entire province. We know we're in the metro region. The resources have not been addressed sufficiently. You talk to the frontline EMS people here, we're constantly in red alert. So what I'm hoping now they will do, that Newfoundland Labrador Health Service operates the entirety of the system as of 2 days ago. They will now focus their attention, along with NAPE, on looking at what resources are needed and properly, that we will not be in red alert in any part of the province for prolonged periods. Shouldn't be for any period, but that's a big piece. The last 6 months, unfortunately, or so, I think they've been turning their attention to trying to get this system in place, and as you know, it was delayed for a short period. I believe it'll be beneficial. Will it be without hiccups in the first week, first months? Absolutely not. But the process is there is that the women and men that provide this invaluable service now are under one employer, Newfoundland Labrador Services, where things are equal from. We got people coming in now that, as of Sunday, actually got a pension plan. Didn't have it for 25 years.
Yeah, it's we still have to figure out whether or not it's going to work. We still have to understand how they're going to measure success, and we still have to understand if we're going to measure things like red alerts. That cannot be a bad word. That's a national standard.
Totally agree, Patty. Because like I say, we in our national union represent EMS personnel from here to BC. I just came back from national meetings, talked to some EMS personnel. That cannot be a word that we're afraid to talk about. It's a measurement tool. And the problem was, guess what? In the private system in most areas, they didn't measure it at all. So we don't know what the red alert situation was in some private areas. What I'm hoping at the very least now, we'll see what the system looks like across the entirety of the province. As we get quarterly reports, something we pushed for, by the way, a couple of years back, that we would get reports on a quarterly basis that shows us the minutes of red alert, and I will use that word, and that's being provided. We know in the metro region, for example, even in recent days, we have been in, and I'll use the word red alert. That should not be occurring, so we have to turn our attention that the women and men that work in these systems, whether we're in Metro St. John's or Gander and St. Anthony, are not put in these situations, nor do people relying on these services not knowing when an ambulance is going to show up. We have to work to correct that because the stress that it places on people waiting on the ambulance and people operating those ambulances is unbelievable and should not be occurring.
Appreciate the time, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Patty.
Yeah, you're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, appreciate the patience of those in the queue. Shelley, you're going to be next to talk about issues with the bank. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Shelley. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you this morning?
I'm well, thank you. How about you?
I'm not too good. I just want to let you know, 7 months ago, I had a very tragic moment in my life. I lost my granddaughter. She was tragically passed away during a car accident on Regatta Day.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And in the meantime, when my granddaughter passed away, I had 2 heart attacks the same day. And then a week later, I was diagnosed with PTSD, severe PTSD, couldn't work for 7 months. So I called the bank, my bank I dealt with for 31 years, and I asked them to defer my payments on my mortgage till I got on my feet again. And they said yes, and that's all I saw, Patty. And then all of a sudden, about 2.5 weeks ago, I got a letter stuck to my door saying that I have 30 days to evacuate or I'm going to lose my home.
Do you have anything in writing from the bank about deferral payments, of payments?
No, they didn't send me out anything. So here I am now. I just lost a little girl that meant the world to me. I had 2 heart attacks, and now I'm going to lose my home, and all I owe is $83,000. So they're going to put a family of 5 out on the street? What kind of bank would do that after you've been dealing with this bank for 31 years? My parents dealt with them for 52 years and had all our assets at that bank. This is what the bank does to you. I have a letter, Patty, stated it was stuck to my door with permanent black marker, and it said inside, I have 30 days to evacuate. The bank is selling my home for $83,000.
Okay.
If I don't come up with that money, right, by the 17th of June, I have to be out. A family now that I worked my whole life.
So does the $83,000 represent the deferred payments, or is that what's remaining on the mortgage?
That's remaining on the mortgage.
Okay. So
I had the money, Patty, to give them to pay the arrears. And I was going down that day with the money, and when my daughter opened the door, she found the letter on the door, which I was shocked.
Okay. Now, just a basic question. Have you set an appointment with the bank to say, here's the money for the arrears, and off we go?
I went down, and they said, no, we're not taking it. We're going to sell your house.
So that's...
And I'm like, that was this. That's what they said to me. And then I got I got these letters coming saying I got to call this one, that one, so I got to be out in 14 days. Where am I going to go? I had this house for 31 years. And when they had COVID, Patty, I never, ever received, like, to get help with deferred payments for my mortgage or anything.
Yeah, and that was no bargain anyway. That was in the best interest of the bank.
Exactly. But now when someone needs it and they're in financial a mess because of a tragedy that happened in our family, now we're going to lose everything. It's bad enough we lost our little girl. Now we got to lose our family home. And in the community where I'm from, somebody put in, a fundraiser, and they denied it. But they won't deny anything else for, like, helping out animals or helping out people that are sick. What is wrong with us? What's wrong with our family? Like, when my granddaughter died, we were blacklisted up here, and that's just the awful word to say. We were talked about. We were dragged to the ringer. People talked about how my granddaughter was killed. You know, it's sad. That little girl needs to lay to rest. And now her grandmother has to deal with all this. I looked after all my children during the time of Autumn's passing, and then we all financially hit rock bottom. There's nothing else I could have done to help my family and my children while my granddaughter passed away.
So with the very quick turnaround time for eviction, even some of the avenues to file complaints and have investigations conducted, they'll be of no value. I mean, like even the Ombudsman for banking and investment services in Canada, there's no way they're going to turn something around in the course of 2 weeks. So I don't know why the bank is so obstinate. So if you have the money to cover the arrears, and look, I know you're hurting, and I don't mean to ask questions that might make it worse.
You can ask me any question. I don't mind on that. Listen, I've been through that much in the past 8 months. Nothing shocks me anymore in my life.
I'm not going to try to shock you, Shelley. What I was going to say is, if you have the money to cover all of the deferred payments, why would
they won't take them?
Why would you not just make regular payments if you had the money to do so? Is there a reason?
I didn't at the time. So what I did, I took out an RSP, right, when I could take it out of my RSP to put my mortgage back up to, the arrears, out of the arrears. So that's what I did. I went and got money out of my RSP to take the arrears out, which was only like $5,000 something. That's what I did. And like I said, when I opened the door, my daughter opened the door that morning, right to the top of my door was just a plain old envelope with black marker, like you swear a child wrote it, saying you have 30 days to evacuate.
Right. So, like I say, any of the independent watchdogs, ombudsmen, they're not going to be able to deal with anything in 14 days. But you need some legal advice here. If there's any way to put this in front of someone independent, what I'm thinking here is in front of a judge, because I'm not so sure that the courts are going to say to the bank, oh, someone offered you the money, you're saying no, for what? So this is kind of a tricky one. And I guess, once again, it's a pretty short timeline for anyone to deal with it. I'm going to give you a number. They might be able to give you some advice.
Okay. Hang on, I get the pen, Patty. Okay. Yeah, it's shocking. Like I said, your life is normal, and then all of a sudden your life turns upside down. And I'm not saying, Okay, what's the number, Patty?
709.
Yeah.
722. 26.
Yeah.
43.
43. And who do I ask for?
You can just ask to speak with someone who might have some understanding of real estate and commercial law, and they can give you some free advice and speak to specifically the 14 days and the opportunity for the bank to maybe be able to accept your arrears payment in full. So make that call and see if they can give you any sort of hope.
Okay. Thank you so much, Patty. Have a wonderful day.
You're welcome, Shelley, and my condolences.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care.
You too.
Okay,
bye-bye.
And add to the banks, and I've been talking about this. We've got banks that have been under suspicion and have been fined for money laundering to support terrorism and organized crime. We got the whole issue of the e-bank transfer harassment that they're apparently unable to address, even though there is software already in place that allows it to be seamless. So, and then like last week was the reporting for all the 5 big banks. Oh, revenues and profits beat expectations. And even they talked about putting aside money for potential bad loans, mortgages in particular. But right across the board, the big five exceeded expectations. Won't accept the money from Shelley. Let's take a break. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Corina, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning to you.
I'm just calling in. I was listening to Crystal that was on, and I also listened to Mr. Jerry Earl that came on. When you asked Mr. Earl, in comparison to what Crystal was talking about, if, with the agreement and what was proposed to us and how we feel that, for me and for all the people, I would say about 70% of the people on our home care Facebook page is that we feel it's a bully tactic that's going on behalf of NAPE. You just asked Mr. Earl, have they recommended that we accept this agreement? And Mr. Earl kind of danced around that quite, wonderfully. And he was very open-ended. He would not be direct, and he did not directly, I feel, answer any question that you did ask.
I asked him that one twice. So, even if I don't deny the fact there's probably pretty complicated negotiations when you have representatives of 22 different units at the table. But, I mean, fundamentally to me, is it being recommended or not? It's kind of a yes or no.
That's right. And to me, it infuriated me because, Mr. Earl or, Dave Healy or whoever, and as well as the home care workers, there was, to my knowledge, 22 of home care workers that were also present for the negotiation tables, as well as the agencies. So collectively, they all had to work together and come to the best possible, agreement that would come forward for the home care workers. NAPE, however, we're paying them, so they should have our utmost, concerns, and they should be there guiding us, and they should be there to, really put it forward on our behalf. On May the 7th, Jerry Earl, this came out on their Facebook, NAPE's Facebook post, and it said, "We firmly believe this is a very good agreement, and we hope you agree with us and the bargaining team once you've had time to review and digest it. Your teams worked incredibly hard to get this deal. We believe this represents a significant step forward in home care workers in this province. Thank you for all you do. In solidarity, Jerry." So that, my friend, answers the question. Did they, in fact, say, we recommend you to accept this agreement? Absolutely, 100%. Also, I watched a live feed on Facebook that was on May the 27th. It was the Grand Falls Windsor meeting, and the agreement came out as to what was being proposed to us home care workers. Now, we've been waiting for some time and been very patient, and we anticipated, we were getting, we hoped for $20 at a minimum, for this year, and then move forward, with a steady increase for, 25, 26, and 27. In my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion on our Facebook group for home care, this agreement is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. They can look at it, and I've heard the speaker in Grand Falls, Windsor, which was the NAPE speaker, which was really ignorant towards people that ask questions. And he said, if you don't like it, don't take it, but it'll be removed from the table, and then you have nothing. That's not how to approach, 4,000 or 4,500 individuals that are concerned. A large number of us are single parents, so we don't have a second income. So it matters what we're getting today, what we're getting next year, so on and so on. And with the cost of Newfoundland Power, going to, hit us again in July, and, the gas going up and the price of groceries and everything are continuously on the rise, this matters to us now. For us, are we going to stay afloat, financially until the coming of Christ in 2027 when we get a so-called measly $20 an hour. So, they can look at it and say, but you got everything you asked for. You got wage increase of 95 cents. You got benefits. What are you complaining about? Benefits that are not achievable to us until 1 year. It doesn't matter how long we've been with the company, how much we've sacrificed. The company will pay 50% of the medical. The dental is 100% on the employee. They got a travel bonus rather than travel allowance. The travel bonus is based off of shifts. Now, in my opinion, and I've done the math on those, depending on the individual worker, you take a person that only works, 3 shifts in a run of a week. So they have to get up to anywhere, I think, from 85 to 120 to even qualify. So for those travel bonuses. So now that person that's working, say, 2 or 3 shifts in a run of a week, that person might be driving an hour each way for work. So then they won't avail of it. So everything it's laid out on the paper, but in order for you to achieve it, it's going to be very difficult. There's going to be, you got to have a certain amount of hours to qualify for the benefits as well. And, for us to be concerned, we have a right to be concerned.
Sure. And I mean, the hours, I think, was 25, right?
Yeah, 25. And we have a right to be concerned. We're voicing our opinions. And during these meetings, that is what they are intended for. Whether this would be our meeting for home care and we got our concerns and we're bringing them to the table, but across the world, everybody is set down to communicate if there's an issue and you want to change or you need clarification. And so that's what we're doing. But they don't like the challenge of us having our concerns or voicing our opinions or asking questions. What is the problem that all of us as grown adults cannot go to a meeting and ask a question without feeling, and it's my opinion, and that meeting from Grand Falls, Windsor is live on Facebook. So this is not something that's going to go away today, tomorrow, or the next day. That speaker that represented NAPE was very ignorant. In my opinion, he was like bullying, as if to say, and he said, either you guys accept this or it goes off the table, and that's up to you guys. There might not be a better opportunity. How can you be in negotiations and trying to come to an agreement, and this agreement has not been voted on yet? So if we choose not to vote on it, so what's the alternative? They're going to go back to the agreement table with the 22 home care workers, the 22 agencies, and the NAPE workers, and they're going to say, boys, they didn't take it, so we're going to give them a worse deal. Now, does that even sound logical?
No, it doesn't. And I don't know if that's the logical outcome. I've got to get to the break here, Karina, but I'll give you just another couple of seconds to wrap up your thoughts.
I would say to everybody, make sure that you call NAPE and make sure that you're registered so that you're able to vote. I was not in the loop of that. I wasn't registered, in their opinion, to be able to vote. And from June the 10th to the 13th, it's up to us. It's our future. It's our money. It's our lives. Either vote, and I'm not saying vote either which way. Vote for what's best for you, but think of the long term. Can you financially stay afloat between 2024 and 2027 based off of $18 an hour? Myself, I can't.
Understood.
My answer is clear.
I appreciate the time, Karina. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dave, you want me to take Liz here? Is that a thumbs up? Thumbs up it is. Line 3. Liz, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty.
Hi.
Well, I tell you, I had to call this morning. I should have called before now, but in February I had a heart attack, probably around the 5th or 6th of February, and I forgot 911. I forgot my ambulance. Powers ambulance out here in Placentia. The only number I could remember was my sister, so I called, and she and her sister came up and took me to the hospital right away. I was in bad shape. I was really into a heart attack, and I knew it, and it never happened to me before. But the reason I called, when I arrived at Placentia Hospital, they were extraordinary. Now, I have never had a heart attack before or any major dealings. I'm 82, and I've done pretty good most of my life. But I had, when I had the heart attack and was taken down there, the doctors and the nurses and their technicians, everybody, of course, they all knew what to do. But I mean, they were just extraordinary in the care that I received. And when I was stabilized and they sent me on to health science, I just couldn't believe the care. I just don't think anywhere else in Canada could have been any better than I received in there. The doctors there, the technicians, the nurses, they were all extraordinary in both places. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to all the care that I received. I just couldn't believe it. And that's my message for today.
And I'm glad you're sharing it with us. And, you know, it's always appreciated by the healthcare professionals when they get these bouquets, because a lot of the conversation regarding health and healthcare is really quite negative. And how are you these days, Liz? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just wonderful. I'm doing phenomenally good, really. But yeah, I'm back to normal. Yeah, I'm doing great, Patty. Thank you for asking.
I'm glad.
The hospitals, I've been telling everybody about the great treatment I received, and that is every bit the truth. That's how it was. I just can't believe it was so wonderful.
And it's the way it should be. Liz, I'm glad you did call this morning. I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you so much, Patty. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
There we go. Placentia and Health Sciences Centre. Shout out to you. Okay, final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Lena, you're on the air.
Hello, Patty.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. How about you?
Good. Patty, I just want to let you know that myself, I'm part of the Cutter Valley United. We're actually headed down to St. John's. We're going to be attending a rally at the conference center for the Newfoundland Energy Conference. We're going to be holding a rally that's in opposition to the wind to hydrogen projects that are currently taking over our province, essentially. I'd like to encourage everybody that has any concerns about the project and are looking for factual information from people who are well-versed in research and have concrete facts with respect to the project. If they want to come out and support the cause, you're more than welcome. We'd like to see people there to express any of the concerns that they have or to gain knowledge with respect to the impacts that it could potentially have on their communities.
So the Energy NL conference starts today?
No, sorry. Yes, it's 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
that's
so.
Tuesday,
okay.
June 4th. My apologies.
No, I just didn't want to be sending people down to the convention center today versus tomorrow.
Oh, 100%. Yes, my apologies. And there's groups. There's EnviroWatch Newfoundland, Protect NL. There's Cutter Valley United, Concerned Newfoundlanders. There's Social Justice. All these groups will be in attendance at this rally. So you're going to have a culmination of a lot of people who have done their research and know a lot about information that the government and the proponent aren't divulging to the people.
Can you give me just a taste of one tidbit of what you think is not being divulged?
Well, the impacts to the communities. For one in particular, where it's going to impact our community directly. I reviewed the EIS in a lot of detail, and I have identified that there's incomplete studies. They haven't done any noise and vibration testing. On our mountaintops, which is going to affect our valley. None of these studies have been done, and the fact that the project has been approved when the mitigation measures and the studies and everything hasn't been put in place is concerning. And I know that Seamus O'Regan essentially feels like is putting a hard push on for this in our province, but the government isn't listening to the people, and there are a lot of people across this island who have immense concern for the physical and ecological impacts that it's going to have on our communities and lifestyles.
So tomorrow, Tuesday, the Energy NL conference begins down at the Convention Centre, downtown St. John's, and you can be available if you're so inclined to talk about what's happening with the onshore wind proposals. I appreciate the time, Lena. Thank you.
Yeah, Patty, I just want to say the Environmental Transparency are the ones that are spearheading this rally that will be kickstarting at 8 a.m. June 4th at the Convention Center.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Lena.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. We'll see if we get a quick one here. 5. Trevor, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Patty, how you doing?
Doing okay, you?
Yeah, not bad. That Queen was on by, and she said a lot of things that I wanted to say about this NAPE and what's going on. But basically, there's no details either on the benefit package. They can't give you the cost. They can't give you the coverage and nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like they're holding stuff back.
Well, hopefully, when those 24 meetings take place, I hope they have details for people because, you know, Weather Karina says her concerns are immediate. Not in 2027. They're today. And she's 100% right because that's where my concerns are as well, obviously.
Well, my son, for a 95-cent raise, big deal. You can't even buy 4 banana candy out of that now, sure? And, like, and at the end of the day, let's just face it, 2027, and you're only going to go up to, what, $20? See, the cost of living now with that old carbon tax and all this old crap, what's going on here, we can't, like, you know what? Us guys should be starting off at 24 an hour. I've been at this since 94. And I tell you, boy, the work that we put in with these clients to take care of them, and they're bullying you. Because they're thinking everybody's going to say, oh, you know what? We don't want that client to go in a hospital or a healthcare facility. And some can go home with their family, yes, but a lot of them are going to be stuck in limbo. And Mr. Old, what's his name? The fellow who was on it, that fella, he's not worried about us. If he was trying to get a raise on what he wanted and it was 95 cents, I bet you the jingles, he wouldn't be too long complaining about it and wondering what's going on, you know?
I hear you. I wish we had more time, Trevor, but you've had the final word. You're always welcome.
The best for last, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. All the best.
Okay, thank you.
There you go. Bye-bye. All right, good show to kick off the week, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.